I'm so excited to welcome all of you. I love seeing all of your names pop up on the screen and knowing of all of the good work that you're doing for BYU. As always, our goal is to keep this meeting short so you guys can get back to your lives in 30 minutes. And so we want to do that. So the way that the meeting is going to go is first, Roy Brinkerhoff, our fabulous chapter person, is going to give us some questions and answers on some of the financial stuff. So many of you guys are doing such great work with replenishment grants. We're really excited to see you guys get that $5,500 so we can get your match. And then after Roy, we're going to turn the time over to Hilary, who is our new chapter director in the Midwest region. So we're really excited to welcome her to the team. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Roy, and you can show us where all the answers to our questions are, Roy.
Yeah, I wish I could. What I can tell you is this: there is not enough time, certainly on this call, to answer your questions about chapter finance. But because as soon as we get one question answered, you're going to have a dozen more. That's just the way it is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a couple of questions, topics that have come up over the past little bit, and we'll talk about those, and then I'll show you also where to go to look for a lot of the answers to the questions you have. But the first thing you need to remember and to understand is that money is always personal. So if someone gives your chapter money as a donor or as a sponsor or whatever form, to them, it's personal. And what you do with it, how you handle it, that is important to them. And so we want to make sure that we understand that. If you expect these people to continue to support you, then you've got to keep these donors informed and these sponsors up to date about what is happening. That's the first principle to think of when you start looking at this. So there's a couple of questions. The first question, and I think this encompasses quite a few different areas: are all donations charitable contributions? The answer is no, they are not. It all depends on the intent of the donor. Now, if it's an individual that is a donor, almost always they do intend that to be a charitable contribution. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. But if they are a sponsor or a business that just believes in what you're doing and wants to be a part of it in some way, that isn't necessarily a charitable contribution. They would probably prefer to take that as a business expense and deduct it that way, than go through the paperwork and the extra effort it takes to be a charitable contribution. Now, some sponsors want to be known as a donor to BYU or to the church in such a way. And so in that case, then yes, we can do that. And I'll show you in a minute some instructions about how to handle those kinds of issues as they come up. The next question is, how do we get tax receipts to a sponsor? And again, in just a minute, I'm going to show you where to go, and we'll talk about that answer then. And then the last one that I have today is, what is the easiest way to get someone to our giving page? We've had a lot of questions lately about why can't this be visible, and why can't it be easier? We think we have the answer, and so I want to show you that. But what I'm going to do right now is we're going to share screens, and so what you should be seeing right now is one of my screens that has Google. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So two ways, most of the answers you're going to have for the questions you have are going to be found in Chapter Pedia. So there's two ways to get there. The first one is to go to alumni.byu.edu, which is our homepage. You come to this page, and there's two ways to get into the chapter area. You can just go right to this link, click there, or down to this box that says Alumni Chapters. Below, click on either one of those, and that takes you into your chapter pages. Now, we'll come back here to this page, but we're going to come down here to this box that says Chapter Leadership. This, if you click on that, takes you into Chapter Pedia. So now, that's one way. Now we're going to go look at another way, and that is through Alumni 3. Most of you are familiar with Alumni 3. If you're not, this is a page that you need to have access to given to you to get into. So if you're a chapter chair, if you're a treasurer, if you're a secretary, if you're a marketer for a chapter, you can have access to this page by simply getting your BYU Net ID to me and let me know what chapter you're associated with, and I can give you access to this. But once you're here, there's a lot of links here, and we don't have time to do, I wish we could, but we don't have time to go over a lot of these. But right here is a link to Chapterpedia, so you can get into it from this way as well. Chapterpedia has several sections. These, campus resources. These are links and information about different things on campus that you might have some interest in searching and talking to, so there's ways to get there. Down below, we've got the training section. There's a lot of hints here. There's a lot of training inside each of these. You just click it and you can look at different sections that are there, including these trainings that we're recording right now will be listed under this quarterly training for chapter leaders. Under chapter activities, again, there are different suggestions for ideas for events and how to do things. If any of you are doing something that isn't in here, please write it up, send it to us in a great format, and we can put it in here for other people to use. But what we're talking about today is in the chapter handbook. The chapter handbook are all of these sections that have different aspects of how to run a chapter. Many of them have some mention of finances in them. But the two we're going to talk about today are first this financial policies. These are kind of general, but down here, chapter finances, these are a little bit more specific to what we're talking about. So we're going to go into chapter finances first. In here, there's some good information you need to understand, but come down here to this section, fundraising to support alumni chapters. This was written for you to gather money to run your chapters locally. And there's different ways that we suggest money can come in. Event fees, that's an obvious one. You charge a couple of dollars extra for an event and you get some funding for your chapter. But the second one is the one we want to pay attention to. Sponsors, underwriters, or contributors. And again, many of these businesses are willing to do this, and many of them will use them as business expense rather than a donation. But if they do want to have that donation, there's steps here. Should a sponsor request a tax donation receipt, follow these steps. So either mail the check in, or if it's deposited, make a copy of the check, and then whatever value of benefit that they received, we'll talk about that in a second, you need to explain what that is, but then you send all of that into us and we run it through LDSP, it becomes recorded, that becomes then a donation to your chapter. Individual donations, same kind of thing, but this is a little bit more straightforward. It's more what you expect. But if you get a check and you keep in your local account, these are the steps you need to follow to make sure that those people receive those donations. So make sure you pay attention to that section of the chapter finances. Now, on the chapter policy, the financial policies, we come in here, again, a lot of good information here you really should know about. These fundraising policies here, this is directly from LDS Philanthropies. So this is some pretty important and some a little bit more, legal information. But if you come down here to this is what we want to talk about, fundraising events. There's two kinds of events that you can raise funds from. One will be just a mass audience event, so a performing group, a football game, something where you might be making a couple of dollars on a ticket. Those are not donations, but they can be fundraisers. So you need to tell people, yes, any proceeds will benefit replenishment grants to our chapter. But the individual attendance events, these are the ones that you really need to pay attention to. This is like a golf tournament, a 5K, a dinner, a speaker and dinner, things that people are paying you to come and be a part of that is intended to be a fundraiser. There's some rules in here that you need to be aware of, but the thing you really need to pay attention to, again, a lot of this is just gathering information, making sure it gets to us so we can run it through LDS Philanthropies. But this section right here, entitled benefit policy, is what you really need to pay attention to. So if a sponsor comes in to your 5K and he's giving you $1,000, but in exchange, you're giving him 10 people that he can put in that event, and individual registration is $10, that means $10 of that is a benefit to him or to that sponsor. Therefore, he is entitled to that benefit, but he is not entitled to that as a donation. So his donation would need to be reduced by $100 of that $1,000. You need to understand that and make sure you account for that in things that you send into us as we pass them on to LDSP. The one other thing in here you should be aware of is anytime you have out-of-pocket expenses, there's ways to do that as well. You can get a reimbursement. There's instructions here about doing that. Or if it's decided that this out-of-pocket is going to be a donation, then there's some information there as well. It's a matter of getting the receipt, sending it in, and us running that through LDS Philanthropies. But the thing you've got to remember, LDS Philanthropies is the only entity in the church that can issue a tax receipt. You cannot, I cannot, President Worthen can't, President Nelson can't. Only LDS Philanthropies can issue that tax receipt. So any time there's a donation that is intended as a charitable contribution, we must have it recorded through LDSP. So all of these are instructions about how to do that. Now, the last question was about if you come into finding your chapter now and you go to any one of your regions, I'm just picking one out of the blue. I happen to hit Boise. It doesn't matter right now, but so here's the Boise, Idaho page. If you come down here, down below now, you can donate to our chapter and there is the link that you can share with people. You click on that, it goes directly to LDSP, and it is to the Boise Replenishment Grant. So you can use that link or this money sign right below it. That link goes to the same thing. So it's a direct now. Almost every chapter has that on their web pages. There might still be a few that we're kind of sticky on. If you see some that don't work quite or aren't linked quite right, let us know and we'll try to get those fixed. I believe I'm going to end there and go and let people go on. I know I'm taking probably too much time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Roy. I'm quite excited that the chapters now have their own link. I'd now like to turn the time over to Hilary Nelson, who's going to talk about an email campaign that she did in her chapter.
Hi, everybody. I think we, Greg and Tammy Finch helped me with this, and they're the chapter chairs now. But we wrote up a letter kind of letting people know that we were having a 5K in a few weeks and, you know, what we kind of wanted to do with the chapter. And we provided a link directly to the donation page. It was kind of an email letter. And we sent it out on October 4th. And we had some people kind of locally here in Des Moines talk to us about it, but no one really made a donation. There was one donation made to the page in December, and that may have been from our email campaign. I'm not totally sure. But I've been doing some research on, where did it go? On email fundraising. Sorry, I got to get to my thing. And it's a really good way to do it, but I think the best way to do it is to combine it with social media. I found the statistic that walk, run, cycling event fundraisers who send more than 15 emails, they raise 76% more than non-email senders. So you do have to send a kind of a lot of emails and follow up on them in order to kind of really see a difference. So, and I don't know if you're just annoying your people or not, but it did, one resource that I found talked about how combining it with social media, because the people that that an email appeals to are baby boomers. They're the ones really, really donating. So, I mean, that's a great way to get them. But then when you're talking about Gen Xers and millennials, they only really donate off of social media. So a direct link from something that they can do on their phone is really going to get them to donate or be more interactive with that. Let's see, what else was I going to talk about? Anyway, so I thought it was kind of interesting. We wrote this really great letter kind of pleading to people like, this is what we want to do. Would you mind helping us? And we didn't really get a great response, but we didn't also have, we kind of were busy pushing our run and we didn't really follow up with the rest of it. So I think following up with other emails and then trying to connect it to social media, like a Facebook is the most broad reaching social media platform, having some way that, those who like your page or who have, you can kind of advertise to them specifically. I think that that's kind of one of the most efficient ways that you can be successful in an email campaign. Let's see, I found it said non-email routes to online giving, getting to an online fundraising page via search, social media links, or website represented 71% of all online revenue, which I thought that was pretty interesting. So anyway, that's what I've been able to find out in my research, is to kind of spend your time linking your email and constantly try to grow who you're sending your email to, your address list, but then linking it to social media so that you kind of cover all the spectrum of people you're trying to have donate to your cause.
No, thank you so much, Hilary. And I think what you said is sort of important is there's not sort of one trick that's going to help you with fundraising. And I think it's frustrating and sort of difficult as someone that's trying to raise funds to think of the best way to do it. And it's also intimidating because I don't think anyone feels comfortable asking people for money. And I know I sound like I always say this, but the thing that's important is the relationship building and people knowing about the cause and seeing your passion for the cause. And what happens is when people sort of become passionate about the same cause, they're much more willing to open those emails, and it can help those social media campaigns go viral. So that's what I would say, is that there's more than one prong and we need to sort of look at everything. And the other thing is, and so I'm getting a chat from Vicky. She just said that we found the best way with our 5K was to get sponsors, which is another fundraising tool. And I know if you look back at past trainings, you can sort of see some of the things to get sponsorships where you look at the people in the community who might be able to sort of donate a bit more money. So thank you so much for that, Hilary, and also for Vicky just to help us sort of see the different avenues. So I'm going to give you a couple of housekeeping questions or things going on with chapters, and then we have about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes we can do for questions. The first is for any of those chapters that are regional chapters. If you haven't done your financial reports, please get those submitted as the tax year has come to a close. And then the other thing, and this is exciting, is we, as you know, BYU accepted a bunch of students last week, and those student lists will be available probably within 10 days to 2 weeks. And once they're available, you can just get those from Chapter Pedia. So Roy showed you where Chapter Pedia was, Alumni 3. If you go to the alumni3.byu.edu, there'll be a link at the top that will sort of say student list, and then you can pull the student list and start planning your student send-offs, which is so exciting to see all of these great young students who are now going off to BYU or any other colleges, community college, UVU, all of the great options throughout the country, and spreading the good work of, the gospel and sort of the spirit of BYU. So what an exciting time. So on that note, is there any questions people have specifically about finances, getting receipts, getting letters, anything specific that they'd like to ask? And again, you can just use that chat button and ask the question. And if you think of a question later, feel free to just email any of us at Alumni and we will answer that question. So are there any questions? Let's see. Here we have, so do you mind sending us an email when those incoming student lists are ready? So one of the things is we can definitely send an email, and then we can probably even send the pathway to make sure you know how to get to the links on Alumni 3, so definitely.
Yes, we always do that. We'll send out a news flash as soon as we have everything ready with instructions about how to use it and where it is. So yeah, that's a standard thing we do as soon as they're in place.
All right, are there any other questions? Okay, we are having a difficult time transferring names on our local account to new chair and treasurer. I'll turn that one over to you, Roy.
Well, yeah, what I probably say is just wait a while. We are in the process of changing our legal status, and they keep telling me it's really close. As soon as we do that, we'll be sending out information about all chapters to how to create a new account and change the 501c3 status. So right now, if you can hold off a little bit, just do it, because I think we're fairly close to that happening. At least that's what they keep telling me. So.
Okay, we have a few questions about BYU Idaho and BYU Hawaii student list. Roy or Wendy, do you know if we have access to those lists?
No, we do not.
That's what I thought.
But if you contact the alumni at BYU Idaho, they will often help. Or if you have local ambassadors, BYU Idaho ambassadors in your chapter, you can just go to the alumni page for BYU Idaho alumni and look up their ambassador program. They may have local people who may be able to help you and make that contact for you as far as Idaho goes.
Okay.
Hawaii is a little different. You may need to contact admissions or the student people in Hawaii. I don't know how. I know some people have been able to do it, but I can't tell you exactly how it's done.
Okay, we have another question with professional chapters and local accounts as well. Right now, as you know, we're sort of transitioning to a 501c3 thing, and so our policy with bank accounts is no one can have local accounts that are not already sort of in place. And once we sort of get established as a 501c3, we'll have a better understanding of sort of what the financial policies are going forward. We're just not to that point yet. Roy, is there anything else to add on to that one?
No, that's true.
Okay, and then the next thing is someone asked about how do you value your sort of donations and sponsorships on 5Ks. What I would recommend on that is to look at other 5Ks and their values, because there's going to be such a difference between different communities, right? Some race in Palo Alto and sponsors in sort of the Bay Area is going to be very, very different than sort of Albuquerque, New Mexico, because things are valued differently. So I would look at other 5K sponsors and ask them what sort of their going rates, and look around and ask, just because economies vary from sort of communities to communities. Generally, though, you sort of see sort of baby sponsors at, 100 to 250. In the middle range, you're going to see anywhere from 250 to 750, and then 1,000. You start getting your platinum. But again, that's just sort of me just pulling that out of nowhere. I would just sort of look into what people do locally.
Yeah, that question came from Vicky, and Vicky, I'm not exactly certain what you're asking there. So you may want to email me and explain a little bit more what it is you're actually asking. Is it the value of a sponsorship or the value of the donation? Because you already have you've already determined a price for that 5K, and so that is probably the value that you've put on it yourself. I believe that's what you're asking, but I'm not certain.
Okay, and then we have this question about the account balances on Alumni 3. So the account balances people see on Alumni 3 generally are for their own bank account, for those who were sort of had back in the time when they were doing bank accounts. To see the LDSP accounts, those do not show up at Alumni 3, and usually you'll need to reach out to us and we'll see what we can pull from LDSP. Is there anything to add to that, Roy?
No, that's correct. We've had people ask that question. In the reporting system, there is the financial report. That is what you keep. It is that's you reporting to us what money you have available and local.
Okay. And Hilary had this great idea, and I think it's fantastic. One of the great things you can do at this time as you're sort of dealing with student send-offs and replenishment grants is your students who receive replenishment grants are one of your greatest assets in terms of advertising the good that you can do, right? So if you're using a social media campaign showing these students who got replenishment grants and their successes at BYU, and be like, don't you want to have even more people in our area having the same successes? They are a great advertising tool, and I would encourage all of you to sort of think about ways to incorporate the students who get replenishment grants from either the professional or regional chapters into your solicitation campaign. And then this next one we have is about the replenishment grant process. And Roy, I'm going to turn that one over to you because that's your project. You just like, how do we start the process for awarding replenishment grants?
Oh, well, first of all, go to Chapter Pedia, look up the little book there that says replenishment grants and read that. That will give you a lot of clues. Basically, applications are coming into the scholarship office. Once they have them already, they forward them to us. I sort them out, then I forward them to you. And as I send them to you, I'll tell you what kind of money you have here, and then you add that to what you have locally, and you make the decisions, return it to me, and the grants can be given. But if you look at Chapter Pedia under the Chapter Handbook, replenishment grants, most of that should be explained there.
All right, so as we promised, we like to keep it short and sweet. I want to again thank you so much for all you do. I love my job because I get to see what we do. I just saw a question about the people that have applied for replenishment grants. As soon as we get that from the office, we send it out, and that's usually in May for the timing for when people get it, and then you can go through the application process. Again, thank you for all you do. Our next training is going to be on June 5th. And again, thank you for your time. Have a great night, and stay connected for good. All right, good night, everyone.